that Tomasz from Voice Lab has limited time to be with us, so maybe we can start exploring first his competence and what he can provide for PSD2, and that's one of the important subjects, additional methods of authentication. Voice recognition wasn't historically used for this authentication. Lastly, algorithms developed, but when you say that playback, you have function for playback detection, it's hard quickly to believe that this is really so secure. Could you first comment on the level of security, because playback of the voice and voice systems are very well developed, and we can record and playback voice with similar quality like the source which is recorded.
Of course, the basic efficiency of voice biometrics is about 2% of errors. Errors, we mean false acceptance and false rejections, yes, because we have two kind of errors in voice biometrics. And this equal error rate when false acceptance and false rejections in the same level is about 2% in the basic state-of-the-art systems, yes, but and of course because of that voice biometrics is not so strong method comparing with, for example, fingerprint, yes, other techniques. So the most secure way is, of course, to use multi-mode authentication. Yes, not only one method, for example, voice, but you can use many methods. This is one way, one approach, and the other approach is to combine many techniques to be more secure using voice biometrics. For example, if you are using basic voice biometrics and you have 2% of errors, yes, and you have system which you have the next method, liveness detection, for example, which allow you to be more secure, yes. For example, with liveness detection, you can have 1% of error, yes, and when you are using playback detection, you can, for example, have about 2 or 3% of errors, yes. When you combine all three methods, you can be more secure, yes, with these things. And answering to your question, of course, there are good equipment. Yes, you can record your voice with good microphones and good. But there are always different characteristics of the recorded sound. Yes, it's a very sensitive system. For example, distance from the. You must be very accurate. Of course, it's not perfect. It's not perfect. Yes, so it's technical problem is to solve this kind of things, but of course any system you can break. Yes, even if you have ID card, you can also have this data. So of course it must be very specific thing. For example, one thing is very easy to detect. For example, if you are enrolling your voice and in the same time you are recording the password, yes. So this voice print is very similar. It's the same, yes. It's the same recording. So it's very easy to detect that the same recording was recorded at the same time. It has the same shape of the wave. Yes, it's very easy to compare this fact. Yes, so if some kind of impostor or thief try to do this, so the system is very sensitive for such things. So I hope that I answer your question partly.
Yeah, this is pretty complex subject and there is many authentication methods, so maybe we can move on to PSD2 directive and what it gives for the future, especially people here from business viewpoint would be interested in knowing new opportunities. And connecting that subject with authentication, what do you think that from many different kind of authentication methods are 2 or 3 winners, the strongest candidates for securing good solutions?
I think if you go back to the slide that Bartek was showing, what is a good authentication? Something that you know, something that you have, and something that you are. And biometrics is basically what you are. This is the strongest way of confirming your identity. That's also the weakest one, because you can change the authentication token if it gets stolen. You can change the password, something that you know, but you can't change yourself, right? Well, if you look at Minority Report, even eyeballs can be replaced, yeah? But it's not exactly that. With the voice, the good thing is that it can be transferred over the media like telephone, like Skype call or whatever. But at the same time, changing your voice is extremely hard if the imposter takes over the recording of any other conversation. If you've seen the Adobe conference from, I think, November last year, whatever you used to do with the Photoshop, you can do now with the voice. You can basically Photoshop the sentences out of the recordings of past presentations, any public presence. You can basically type in the text and the system will speak with all the characteristics of the voice of the person imposted on the stage. It is frightening because, well, if you think about manipulation done by our friends from the East, done by the people on the far left or right, you can basically mock up any kind of recordings, false statements, which can influence the results of the elections, which can influence the business decisions, which can influence the relations between business partners. So biometrics is the strongest, but at the same time, the weakest one. It has to be complemented by the other authentication methods. It has to be complemented by the things that you know and the things that you have. That's why you need to have those multi-factor authentication platforms, which include both the biometric elements, but also give you the flexibility of changing the other factors if they get compromised. It's also about the backup solution. So what happens if you get sick and your voice is out? The system probably in development will adjust to such situations, but at the same time, it's really hard. You need to have a backup. The Polish Banks Association, I heard a very, very nice anecdote. A guy came to the bank outlet and asked for 100,000 Polish zloty withdrawal. And they said, okay, your fingerprint, please. And the guy shows his hands bandaged because he got burned. And there's no way he can give the fingerprints. So they said, okay, no problem. We'll use the secondary authentication method, which is, guys, scroll through the system. Oh, SMS. He sends the SMS. The guys received the SMS. 100K paid out. The problem was that the phone which he was using was compromised because he received it as a gift from the operator, but it was not the operator, but in fact the criminals. So the real text was sent to a different number, and in fact this person who was sitting, it was not the owner of the account. It is one of those stories. If you ask about what is the best authentication method, I think that future belongs to no passwords and no authentication methods. It's all about the biometrics, but in different dimension, in not only what we are, but how we behave. And this is something much, much broader, because this is something that you can detect in the session, like banking session. If the user starts to do something different than they are usually doing, the session shall be flagged as suspicious.
If the privileged user, the administrator, starts to dump the database, it's a suspicious thing. It can be that someone has hijacked him and pushes a big gun against his head. Or maybe the guy basically has an incentive to change his behavior. So the future of authentication and authorization is not really about the factors, but about the behavior analysis, which is much farther going into machine learning, artificial intelligence, something that actually you will see pretty soon from Google as well.
Thank you, Michał. I fully agree with you, so I will not continue the same subject, but I would like to answer this first or the second part of your question. I can't remember this time. You were asking about what is going to change when we implement finally the PSD2 directive here. Well, I think that I heard that here in this room there are many of entrepreneurs, and probably you all have already or will have some own business, and PSD2 is a great opportunity to create a new business, or if you are thinking about just go onto this market, because from my perspective there will be at least niche for example, non-banks organizations who has some money to implement a great mobile application, secure, nice looking, with great user experience, with great user interface, and to gain new clients from already existing banks and to convince them to use your applications instead of, for example, I don't know, if somebody likes this guy from Eurobank, Piotr, how is it called? The actor is, I can't remember. If somebody likes Danny DeVito, he will probably use the BZWK bank, yeah, probably. But we can convince this client to use our app and to move with the whole account and its services he's using, like credits, like credit cards, everything, yes? We can move this to our app and convince these clients to change the bank operator, yes? Like already we are changing the mobile telephone operators. We can now change the electricity operators, and probably in the future it will be as easy as changing the, for example, mobile telephone operator, just to change a bank. Right now, I run a company, and it's really hard to change a bank. I'm trying to get out of one bank. I will not give the name, but yeah, but I'm trying to do that, and it's it's very, very hard, believe me. Yes, and so this is a great opportunity for people who are thinking about their own business. This is one. What else? This is also opportunity for banks as well. Yeah, banks are petrified, as I said before, but it's also a huge opportunity for banks. Why? Because they can also take these clients from other banks to their own app, to their own electronic banking, mobile banking, whatever, yes, but they can convince these clients to offer them on a basis, for example, analyzing the account of some potential client in another bank, because they will gain an access to the client's competitor's bank, and it can, as I said, your financial history as your asset. Today we are taking some loans in Wonga, whatever, in some banks, and nobody knows about that. Banks trying to switch this data between themselves, but it's kind of hard. And when the PSD2 come into force, it will be as easy as just checking your bank balance, your account balance, for another bank to check your history, yes? So your history would be your asset. And it will be really easy to propose a very potential great client better conditions that he has already in the competitor's bank, yes? So I think it's an opportunity for both, yeah? Entrepreneurs, new gamers, non-banking gamers, and banks. Thank you.
Thank you. And probably there are some questions now towards opportunities which PSD2 is bringing to us. We have second microphones. Good.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentations. They were really interesting. When I look at the new solutions, I always wonder, are you ready to take full responsibility for your product and for what may happen if someone frauded or deceive it in any other way? At this moment, can you like sign a contract that says every fraud means 100,000 zloty penalty?
It's a very good question. But I think that in none of the contracts, business contracts they have seen ever, is any kind of this kind of responsibility encoded. There is always this clause saying that we are not responsible for any financial loss, the death, or any health issues of the people using the solution. And I think it's about many layers of the solution. Some things that we can be responsible for, actually responsible for, like the idea of recognizing the voice, or the idea of storing passwords in a certain way. But you are also dependent on the hardware vendor that runs the entire system. You are responsible for the quality of the software per se, how it's written. But you're also responsible for, you should be then held responsible for the statistics. Many of the methods that we are using, especially the ones which are somewhere in this machine learning area, they are probabilistic. They are saying, well, it's like 80% probability that it's the guy. It's not 100%, right? In IT security in general, there is a whole business in insurance area which is covering the losses incurred by any kind of data breaches, any kind of criminal activity. Yeah, there is something like that. It's quite interesting, by the way. I think in Poland, at least 2 insurers are giving this kind of services, based on the assumption that proper security measures are taken before they issue the insurance.
I can add that this is nature of software, that sometimes it has as is, terms, and before we start, our product for, production, we of course, there is many steps, yes, audits and checking and security levels, bank is checking everything, yes, so we cannot confirm for 100%, because as it was mentioned, it is sometimes algorithms based on some probabilistic, or some things that you cannot, guarantee. So in this scope, you cannot guarantee, 100%, yes, but if you guarantee, for example, more than 90% or what is possible, so you can give some acceptable, level of parameters for working system. Okay.
Okay, so I've got one question to Bartek, if I can. You said about the PASH, the sending code using PASH, yes? And how big problem with authentication is using SMS? Because in my opinion, it isn't so similar in security way. Maybe it's the other problem like costs, because we know that operators getting many money from the banks using the SMS code. So why like mBank did the push on their application? Is it because of secure, or is it because of the cost? And another one question, how hard is to implement it in another bank? Yes, because I don't know. Did you wrote the whole application, or is it something like, I don't know, API plugin or something in easy way to implement in other banks? So these 2 questions.
This push as immune as GSM systems for.
Okay, these are really good two questions. So coming to the first one, there are many reasons standing by implementing the push notification instead of SMS. The first, you mentioned costs. Yeah, banks are paying a lot. They are paying annually around 70 million zloty for sending SMSs to their clients. So it's a costly business. This is the first reason. The second is that it's easier. It's also very hard. You need to have a very expensive infrastructure to do that, but it's possible to take over the SMS coming to the client. The first example just Michał said, but I know the other. You can just make a fake BTS standing and you receive in the same time SMS on both, let's say, numbers. Yeah, it's just doable. It's costly, but it's also doable. Push is going directly to the mobile application, to the user. It should go. So it's more safe. It's even costless because sending a push notification costs the bank almost zero because it is done by the Google API or Apple API or Windows, but forget about Microsoft, yes. What next? I can tell you only that, for example, the mBank that implemented this technology as a first in Poland, probably even in the world, will have or already have a strategy that for some time the SMSs will be free. In some times there will be preferred method of authorization in push, and then the SMSs will be paid by the clients, and yeah, so probably this is a strategy that banks want to implement and earn more money. It's just business, yes. And the second question is how hard is to implement the push token, let's call it like that, into mobile application. So it depends on many factors. I'm not a technical guy, but I'm a business guy. And in the beginning of my adventure with mobile business, I thought just in mobile application, how much can it cost? 20,000 zloty, enough, yes? But it's really more expensive and more complicated than I can even imagine. Every update, every year to the new upcoming iOS version. This year we will have the iOS 11, and next year we'll have, this year we will have probably, for sure, Android O, as far as I know, so with the number 8. And every customization of the mobile application to the new standard that Google and Apple are introducing costs almost 1/3 of the mobile application with the first version. So it's really expensive business. But implementing the push notification to the mobile application that's up to date and it's made in the new technologies, it's like a plugin. You need to put it into this mobile app, but that's not all. You need to do also some changes on the server side, because you need to, like serve banking has, let's say, both has two sides. One on a mobile banking system, and the second in a near to the core business, core banking system. Yes, so the server side. You need to make changes both on a server side and on mobile banking. Did I answer your question? Yeah. Okay.
Bartek mentioned, but I think it's really worth investigating it further. Just search for even the recent news about the attacks on the German banks. The SS7 signalization protocol for which is used by the operators is basically no authentication. It's full trust. Whomever connects to SS7 infrastructure is accepted. So there is no barrier for any attacker to build a BTS or a B node and pretend they are an operator, roaming and getting the users there. That's one thing. Secondly, if you use the SMS, it's all owned by the infrastructure of the operators. And when you do it in the application, you have basically much bigger flexibility.
You can use whatever is already embedded in the operating systems and the hardware of the phones with secure storage, with HCE, you haven't mentioned yet, yeah, HCE, with the ability to work on those multiple layers between the application, the operating system, and the hardware to provide much better integrity check, whether the whole infrastructure was not compromised, because you control it, not the operator. It's basically the bank which is owning the application, how it's working, how it interacts with the underlying operating system, how it interacts with the facilities of the hardware. And that's basically much more flexible and gives much better tools to develop it further, because we just talk about the opportunities which are opening because of PSD2. Just think about those applications that can work with multiple banks, even if it's mBank, BZW, BK, or well, whomever is there. You have one application which is able to manage multiple accounts. And then the ability to introduce additional layers, additional proxies in this ecosystem. And there, you need to be much more flexible. You need to see those multiple elements of the transaction. Who is actually taking part in the transaction? The core system of some bank with the intermediate system handling the transactions and the user. We started with the voice recognition. It's just authentication. Think about authorization of transaction as a whole context. Who, when, where, and what. There are so many things that has to be taken into account, whether this transaction makes sense for the actual customer or not. Does it go through, accepted or not? And only in the application you can do it. Application has the presentation layer of what is happening from there, of course.
And besides this push new solution, what more from your existing solutions could be used further into new PSD2 to provide entrepreneurs some inspiration as a starting point to build up on further?
Well, I'm just thinking about new ideas. Much was said already. Michał? No, I can. Yeah, I can say one thing because I forgot the name of the guy. Piotr Adamczyk, if you like Eurobank. Sorry, yeah, that's only what I can remember at the moment. But only if you like him. Okay.
Maybe I could elaborate a little more about this behavioral analysis, because this is something which seems to be very, very hot right now. Even if you authenticate yourself, even if you authorize the transactions, there is still this gray field. Is it really you? Or why you are doing it? Maybe you are feeling bad. Maybe you have some bad thoughts about your future. Or maybe you are blackmailed. Maybe you are terrorized by someone. And that's another abstractive layer of the context of the transaction. And some banks are considering, and this is something which is very interesting field, is behavioral analysis. How the user is moving inside the application, what kind of options they are using, in which sequence. Is it the usual thing that they are doing? Is the standard behavior that they are displaying there? Where they are doing this? Maybe you know the story about this young lady in Egypt who basically committed a suicide, right? A Polish lady on beautiful vacations suddenly jumps from the window, and that's exactly this kind of behavior that can be prevented, right? And if you see that someone is changing the pattern of the behavior, you can prevent bad things happening on both banking level, but also on any other level. And especially from Wheel Systems perspective, we are talking about people who are working under high pressure, timing, lots of very, very important tasks. They can break down because of this high pressure. They can be blackmailed. They can be terrorized in any way. They can maybe they're just malicious, and maybe they just want to do something harmful. If we can prevent these things happening, it's again a little like Minority Report,
but that's exactly where we try to go without compromising the privacy of these people. Right? So if something turns to be different, stranger, we can give some indicators to the supervisors or the people who are in the service of the bank, send a warning message. Something might be wrong, and a human could start interaction instead of the automaton somewhere there.
Okay, maybe last question, please.
More questions from the audience?
The last one. Okay, two.
Very quick question. You mentioned in one of the presentations that the banks would be petrified because of the introduction of the PSD2. What barriers they can enact in order to protect their business?
The question was what barriers can meet banks, yes? Okay, okay. Well, I think that banks are mainly petrified, as I said during my presentation, because of the fact that the EBA, I will say once more, European Bank Authority, is preparing many ideas that are not fully safe. And in case of the money is missing, the money will not come on an account that they should come. What will say the client? Client will not go to the TPP, but the client will go to the bank and say, give me my money back. This is the responsibility of banks to provide the best possible and still easy to use for the client security to the whole ecosystem, because at the moment we are building completely new ecosystem. So far we had a bank and a client, and they were connected via very safe VPN connection. I have also my adventures with the bank I just mentioned. I even cannot make one transfer because of the security reasons, and I'm the managing director of my company, and I cannot make a transfer, yes, because of the security reasons. I need to go to the bank, do something I even don't know. Maybe this is why I'm using the MacBook Pro, or maybe not the Windows, because nobody thinks about the Mac users, and maybe this is something is wrongly configured in the system. I don't know. I have information from the bank that everything works fine, yes, but it doesn't work. I spent almost 2 days last week to try to make a small transfer, 15 zloty, so not so huge. And the responsibility, this is the reason, yes, they will not accept the RTSs in which the EBA will write some not safe solutions they will have to implement. Because even in Poland, in 2014, the KNF forbidden the screen scrapping, yes? And right now, they are really thinking about the screen scrapping in terms of, let's say, allowing the TPP to see what I have on my account. In my opinion, this should be blocked, yes, this idea. And I think that's the main reason. Banks are just afraid of the security, and they are afraid of losing money and reputation as well.
Just one more note. I also believe that banks are afraid of all those new regulations because they are breaking the business model they are using right now. The same way like it broke the business model of the telcos in the past, it will be disturbed. It will be disturbed big way. This one-to-one relation between the customer and the bank will be broken. New entities will be introduced. New players in the market will be, and they see that basically their margins are going somewhere. They don't know where. They don't know how they will be basically working in the future. That was happening in the telco industry. It's happening even more. But for the banks, it's the beginning of this story. Some people were saying, well, Bitcoin, the blockchains,
But I think it's exactly the PSD2 is the real threat for the standard business model. And you know, one little anecdote at the end, because it's exactly for Bartek and his adventures with the banks. You know why the IT guy cannot be a doctor? Just imagine the situation, the patient coming to the doctor's office and saying, well, I have this pain here, and the doctor is saying, strange, no pain on my side. So it works on their side. It doesn't work on my group.
Okay, thank you. And the last question.
Hi, I'm basically a technical architect in a software company. We implement security solutions for banks, and we've been analyzing the latest RTS. And like you've been talking about a lot about the very innovative authentication mechanisms, but it looks like the existing ones, which is just password and OTP, would still meet the PSD2 requirements as the two authentication methods. Right, so I think I understand the motivation behind being innovative, but you know, if you would just look at banks and their cost structure, if something works now, you know, I mean, so my question first is there really a requirement for them to do something else beyond what they do now? Of course, there's a different aspect, which is the APIs, right? So the infrastructure has to change, but you know, from our analysis, the authentication doesn't have to change. So what's your view on this?
I have the internal view, Bartek probably has the external view. The internal view, maybe I'll start with that. The PCI DSS, which is one of the widest regulations in the financial industry. The recent edition, the 3.2, requires multi-factor authentication wherever the cardholder data is processed. So in internal systems, they have to be subject to multi-factor authentication. And then how you do that for the Oracle database administrator, which uses a username and password. Or how do you do that for the major telco hub somewhere there in your system where the cardholder data is being processed? The only way is to use kind of proxy, which is on one end authenticating the users, and then the admins, and then the admins are given access to those units, those assets on the other side, where the password is not revealed. For the outside world, for the user interaction, I think the major issue is how the banks are held responsible for the misuse or for any kind of attacks on the users, how they are going then to cover the losses of their customers. And that's the reason why they will move to the multi-factor authentication or biometric or whatever. Because otherwise, they will be paying basically huge fines for whatever happens. It's too easy to break the password, and I don't know why someone is even coming to the idea to give. Actually, it's not. It's just two-step authentication. It's not two-factor. It's two-step, because if you're accessing your account from the same mobile device where you receive the SMS, it's not multi-factor. It's still the same device. It's just second step in the authentication. The second factor in this authentication is, in fact, if you read what is the context of the SMS. If the context of the transaction gives you some hint that someone has modified the transaction on the way, then is a second factor. But you have to think about it, and most of the users will not do it.
It looks like very hot subject to break into banks' business model, but we can continue after this discussion further with more questions. So let's thanks our panelists.
No, do not go into cybercrime. No, bad idea.
Okay, thank you very much for this official session.
Thank you very much, everybody.